Hello, everyone. This is Nicole with the Nazarene Fund, and today we are doing an episode of the Nazarene Fund in real life. And we're so excited to have two fabulous guests with us, Tatha and David Enns. And today they have come to share with us their story about sponsorship and how they have had the opportunity to receive one of the Nazarene Fund's families into their home, what that experience was like. And one of the reasons we want to tell these really important stories is because the US just launched a new program called the Welcome Corps that allows families to name to come together, groups of 5 to come together. And it can be families, it can be community groups, it can be book clubs. Any group that's connected can come together to sponsor a refugee family in another part of the world and to name them. And there's so much need for that, for families to have a pathway to come to the US to be received by families like David and Tatha. They have such better success, the families do, being received. But more importantly, and one of the reasons why we wanted to meet with David and Tatha to hear their story is not only are the lives of the families that are finding new homes changed, but the lives of the families who receive them are changed too. So we just want to hear that story from you. Tatha and David, thank you for coming to talk to us today. So I just want to jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and tell us how you came to meet this family and to receive them into your home. What was that process?
So, David and I have been married now for 17 years. We have a blended family, and we had prepared a basement apartment for my son that has disabilities. And then it didn't work out that he was able to stay in that apartment. So, we had a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment that for some reason we just left vacant. I mean,
It
David's,
stayed vacant for several months.
yeah, usually David's like Johnny on the spot. And for some reason, we know now that there was purpose in that. We just didn't feel right about renting it, and it just kind of sat there for a little bit. Well, at the same time, we started hearing stories about our um, amazing Afghan family as they went through the tumultuous and very dangerous path of trying to escape from Afghanistan and get into a safer situation.
So that was, what was it, August of 2020?
Yes.
So yeah,
Mm,
literally,
2021.
was it 2021?
Mhm.
So yeah, the apartment was available in June and it sat. So
Yeah. So we started hearing some of the stories of this husband, wife, and their 2 children, and the story was very heart-wrenching. We started to pray for this family by name, and even though we had never met them, we were sending them messages of hope, and eventually, I just had this really strong impression that we should allow them, if they could make it out alive, to be able to stay in our basement apartment. So I said to David, "Honey, what do you think about offering this apartment to them if they can get out alive?" And he's like, "What?" Then he's like, "Okay." It was all really pretty quick. He was amazing, just, jumped right on board with what I was thinking, and it began this adventure that became and continues to be a wonderful change in our lives.
so in the 17 years that we've been married, when we were married, we kept talking to each other that our life together is going to be an adventure. So this was another adventure in our lives, and it sorry, not only was it an adventure for us, it was a miracle for us. And we'll talk about it, but we probably gained more from this experience than the family that you sponsored. It's absolutely an amazing time in our lives. And we grew to an amazing level, which is difficult to explain, other than it changed our lives forever in a very good and positive way.
Yeah, that's something that I think is so important for people who are thinking about sponsoring a refugee family to understand. And I thank you for sharing that there really is a change that you just can't explain. I wish that I could tell someone how miraculous that feeling is and how much joy it brings into your life to be connected with these families. Thank you for sharing that with us. You didn't know this family at all. And we didn't even know if this family was going to get out.
Right.
But you set aside this apartment for them. You didn't rent it, and you just had a strong impression that you could receive this family into your home.
Yes. At that point, also, we started reaching out to our, friends and neighbors. You know, everyone here has a structure of support. This family had nothing, no one. They're coming to a new country, new language, new culture. They had nothing on with them. So we started reaching out to friends, and people just started pouring in donations and help. We had bunk beds brought in, and mattresses and beds and tables and clothing and money and new clothing, and like the whole kitchen was appointed, and it was just really amazing to see. We had a lot of our friends and neighbors, signing up to help if they needed help, once they arrived here, and, with driving to appointments or whatever it was. So we just kind of started engaging our supports to help with them. And that turned out to be actually a really neat thing. Like one of our neighbors in particular that invested a lot of time with this family, she said, "Oh, I've always wanted to help with I really wanted to help with like a refugee family, and it was just too far away and I couldn't figure out a way to do it. And now you've brought him right to my neighborhood, right in our cul-de-sac." And she just invested so many hours in just helping with everything you can imagine. And so it blessed her lives, it blessed their lives.
I think something we need to talk about as well is when they came, we met them at the airport and we drove them to the apartment. And as they walked in, they had nothing. That each one of them had a suitcase with a few clothes in it. Other than that, they had nothing, absolutely nothing. And what was another really tender moment was when the wife walked in. She looked at the apartment, and it was brand new. Okay, um, but the first thing that came out of her mouth at that time was, "This is the first time in my whole entire life that she felt safe." And it's amazing because from there, everything just started to blossom. Just as Tat had mentioned, that the neighborhood, the community, our friends, everybody, it was just such an incredible outpouring of help, whether it was, like you said, financially or items that they had that they just really didn't need, that they're willing to donate to help set up the apartment for them, or if it was their time to help them individually or collectively as a family. It was amazing.
Another friend I remembered took them grocery shopping and spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars for them to just get food in their apartment, and they had never seen a store like that.
Couldn't
They
imagine
were
that a
like,
Smith's or a Walmart was really the way it was, that there was so much plentiful food available.
although they had difficulty finding the food they were used to, and so that took a little bit of a trick. But reversing just a little bit, I wanted to go back to as we watched the flight come in, we're watching it on the flight tracker, like, "Oh, they're landing," and we were so excited, and we had kind of the father was the only one that spoke English, and so we were communicating everything through him, and I just said, "Do you think that your wife will be okay if I give her a hug?" And he said she will be okay with that. So, anyway, we went into the Salt Lake Airport, and the doors opened, and out walked these foreigners. And I have to say for a split second, I was like, "What have we done?" because the things that we learned culturally about their culture have been a little frightening, and it was a split second, and I took his wife in my arms, gave her a hug, and everything after that just went beautifully.
Of course, they had the deer in the headlight look.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important point that you bring up. Like, what are some of the fears that you had going into it? And what were some of the fears and feelings of your neighbors and, the community that was receiving them? Was everything positive, or did you have some emotional barriers or some um, biases within the community that you were in to help overcome?
Can I say one
Yeah,
thing?
go ahead.
So I heard this through other people, not directly from the source, but we did have a neighbor that was very unsettled about the fact that we would bring an Afghan family into our neighborhood. And um, that came full circle as they engaged with them and came around and got to know them, that those fears were completely dissipated.
Yeah,
Another
it
family,
took several months
yeah,
for them to come around, but I think as I sat back and watched the community rally around the family, and then as we introduced them to other people and as just overall over time, they came back and they said, "I can't believe that I had those thoughts or I had
mhm.
those feelings." And they truly they warmed up and they were accepted in their hearts and their minds as well.
Well, I was gonna say we also had neighbors that had previous experience in Afghanistan through the military who were leery of an Afghan being in our neighborhood. But again, over time, as people got to know the family, it it really dissipated. But we had the cream of the crop, I have to say.
Yeah,
Like,
we're really wonderful family.
and they are forever family for us. They
He's my adopted brother.
That's so beautiful. So tell us a little bit about the process. As they arrived, they come with nothing. They come to this beautiful new apartment that you've set up, but it's a really complex process receiving people from another country, from a different culture, from a different religion that don't speak the language well. How how did that integration process go? I mean, let's just start from the beginning. As they came in, into your home and into your lives, what did that process look like?
It's amazing. Like I said, that we had an outpouring of our neighbors and our friends that as a even before the family came in, we were approached by some of our friends and neighbors that said, "Hey," because we explained that they don't speak English other than the father, and it was broken. Um, so one of our friends said, "Well, I teach English to Chinese students, and so I know the format, so I can teach them." So after about 3 or 4 days, she would come over. We introduced her to them. She started teaching them from the very beginning, mainly focusing on the children. Uh, the youngest, she was 6 years old at the time, and the older boy was 9. And the mother didn't know any English either. But they focused on the children, and it was amazing. She'd spend 2 hours a week, 1 hour each day. And I think it was within the first month, these children were it's amazing how they weren't fluent, but they were picking up and they were speaking. We were able to communicate with the children within a month. One of the other things is we got them integrated into school in public schools. I think it was within a week or at least 2 weeks when they arrived that they were actually attending their elementary school. It was hard. It was
they
really
went
hard.
in cold turkey, not speaking a word of English, and they picked it up so fast, and now they don't even have accents, and they always correct their father. "Dad, you don't say it like that."
It's amazing.
It's so fun. And now They have another child that is a U.S. citizen.
But with that, so English was one of them. Um, we helped him use some of our neighbors and friends to help him obtain a job. So he was working within 4 weeks of arriving. They did receive, we worked with local, can I say,
Like resettlement agency?
Catholic.
Yeah.
So we were working with Catholic Community Services
Mhm.
that helped them, got them established, and we helped them with a lot of the paperwork, amazingly enough, with food stamps, and we got them on other assistance programs, and just to get them on their feet so they could have a little bit of an income to help support themselves. And so after he had a job, he was working, and like I said, the kids were in their schooling and they were being taught English, so many other things, and you might want to explain it better of assistance and things that we were able to help, and the community was able to help them to get on their feet.
I just think too, one of the hardest things was the language barrier at first, and we did a lot of Google Translate. We started learning some Dari words and, um, it but a lot of Google Translate. Initially, we would just send text messages back and forth using that so that we could kind of at least communicate. Um, there were some very basic things that, major cultural things that got in the way, which things like they had never had an oven, stove, refrigerator, microwave,
Hot water.
dishwasher, hot water. They said, "Is there hot water?" We're like, "Yes, there's hot water." Um, and one of the funniest ones was a little bit further into it. I mean, it had been probably months and months, if not a year, and we found out that they were still trying to open cans with a hammer and a screwdriver because they didn't know there were, like, can openers.
Yeah.
It was a big cultural shock for
But
them.
we would have the same thing if
Yeah, we
we
absolutely would.
went to a different culture.
Yeah. So in that process, how did you find that it strengthened your community? You talked a little bit about your neighbors and some of the challenges that they had and all of the people also that came together. How do you feel like having that family in your home strengthened your community?
Um, they're Muslim, and we learned so much about the Muslim people, love that they share. We're Christian, but there are so many similarities between the two of us. They were really open to. They came to one of our ward meetings and just kind of became acquainted. And I think that also helped as well because then it opened it up to not only just our friends or our immediate community, it opened up to our entire neighborhood. Um, and seeing that they took interest, we're not trying to convert them or anything, but because they took interest, other people started asking, "Hey, is there anything we can do to help?" And most of the things in our internal network, we had a lot of those resolved. We believe. But what was amazing, we had people come out and said, "Can I'm retired. I can't help with a lot of these things, but I can become a driver. I can drive them to their appointments. I can drive them to school." Or and we had another family said, "I have an extra car." And they donated a car so he could get to and from work because somebody donated a bike and his plan was to ride a bike 5 miles each way. And he said, we would complain how terrible it'd be to try to go on the bus or walk or ride a bike to work, but he was super excited that I have a bike and I could ride that to work. But somebody looked at that and said, "I have a car. I will donate you a car to you so you can drive to work." It was just, it seemed like it just expanded and people just over time wanted to engage. That's what's amazing for us in our community and other people who we've spoken to in other communities is the general consensus is people want to help other people that are in truly in need. And when I see a need specifically, like with our family, um, they wanna help. And it's amazing the things that, "Oh, we have everything covered, everything's okay." But it's amazing some of the things that you don't think about that other people can help resolve. Whether it's driving, teaching them how to get a driver's license, how to pass the test, how to translate and, read the book and in preparation for those. It's just amazing. So many things. It became such a broad spectrum of information and help and resources to help his family. And it all started with, let's do it.
Yep, and they are so well loved in our neighborhood now. I can't even tell you, like, people really love them. And the other thing, as far as community involvement, when their first Christmas there, I mean, they had heard of Christmas, but they had never celebrated a Christmas, and they were curious, and we had the Christmas spirit there. I'll tell you what, we had people donate so many goods. Their whole living room was piled full of gifts, and they got to experience a Christmas, even though they're Muslim, just the generosity of Christian giving. And they were even selected by the city of Layton to turn on the Christmas lights for the area, and that was really neat.
They didn't understand it, but they're sure excited to be able to flip that switch.
But many things they had never seen anything like what we have in our communities, and there were a lot of tears shed and a lot of survivor's guilt. Like, I remember many nights the father just sitting outside in the cold wanting to feel cold because he knew that his some of his family members were still back in Afghanistan experiencing the lack of heat and the lack of food, and it's been really hard to watch him go through that. But all in all, he is and each of them are just kind, loving. I remember one day, this was during, I wanna say it might have. Anyway, I went out in the backyard and the mother was on her prayer rug praying, and it just really touched me. It's like we don't have a corner on our expressions of love towards God. Like, we have a lot more similarities than differences, and they love God, we love God. It was very apparent, and we were able to build on that. We prayed together. We would pray, they would pray, and ironically, it's a song prayer, and it's beautiful. We also got to experience some amazing food.
Yeah. A lot of good
Yeah,
conversations.
and we gained extra children in our home, and to see the delight as they engaged in our culture and day-to-day life, and they got their first bikes, and they learned to ride a bike as David helped teach them that, and it was just the joy of childhood all over again to watch and be with them as they experienced life and continue to do so. There's nothing better. They run up to us and give us hugs, and they're always so happy to see us, and
I'm their Uncle David.
So, tell us about some of the challenges that you faced in this process. So, I know that there's always so much joy, and the positives are much greater than the negatives, but I think it's important to acknowledge that there are some difficulties and that it can be challenging.
A lot of it is the language barrier. So if we would do it all over again or recommend anything to help other people if they want to make the decision to sponsor to help families like this, is you need to break that barrier of language. Um, with the, like I said, Catholic Community Services, they had courses available and they would go into those rooms and it was just a whole bunch of talk and it was confusing. So they actually stopped. It wasn't very helpful for them. And what the amazing miracle on our end is the fact that we had a person happened to be that they taught English, like I said, to the Chinese people. So my recommendation in that case would be to um, be prepared to research and find if there's a specific means of being able to help the family learn English. I mean, we would like to learn their language, but if they're whatever country that they're going to, you need to break that language barrier because in conversations with um, the family, the father, and even other people, um, our conversations go. They're being people are in hotels or apartments wherever they are, but they can't get a job because they can't speak the language. And I think what really got him through one was he knew English. It wasn't very good English, but he
He's
knew
self-taught.
English. Yeah. Um, but he was able to communicate and he was able to get a job. And there's so many other people that come to our country or to another country, and because they don't understand the language, they sit because they're lost. They don't know what to do. So the first and foremost is one, get them settled in, but they need to learn the language of the land that they're going to. And I believe that that just opens up so many doors. So for us, that was a challenge. But again, for us, it was amazing because someone just came right out of the community. And I think that probably the second one that helps break down some of those barriers or difficulties is publicize it. Let your neighborhood know.
Use
that
your network.
Yep. Create a network, doesn't need to be big, but you use your network. And then again, people are amazing. I don't think it matters wherever it is in the world. In fact, um, the father was telling me that in Afghanistan, if someone comes knocking on your door, you welcome them in, you give them whatever food you have available. You just open up, and it's amazing the things that'll come about.
So I think one of the other challenges was for them to navigate the healthcare system. I mean, we have difficulty navigating the healthcare system, and for them, it's nearly impossible. And so just helping them understand how insurances work and how doctors work, because they could just go in and say to a pharmacy and basically say, okay, I need IV fluid, and they would make it happen. So very different. Also, like, I remember the first time helping the mother understand and learn how to use a debit card. Like, never in her life had she done anything like that, and so that was fun. Now she's very good at it.
She discovered Amazon.
And but there are definitely some cultural differences too, where we are like we love to explore and hike and swim and do all kinds of crazy things like that, and she was used to staying home. I mean, it wasn't safe for them to go out, and so helping them to explore their world a little bit was a really unique experience, and also having to be tolerant to the fact that sometimes in some of these things, they're okay to continue the way that they've been, where they hold back a little bit more maybe than what we would expect, and except for the children, they
Right.
like
We like to spoil it. One of the things, so I guess looking at it, just getting him integrated into the community, the basics, right? Shelter, food, clothing. And then the next part is gaining that independence. Because especially with this family, he wanted to work, but it was difficult to find work. So part of our network was to help him find a job, um, have that positive impact on him and his family that he can support his family without having government aid. Even though at the time he did have government aid, we were able to help him rather quickly get off that and be self-sufficient. And then from there, it just continued to blossom. So
Yeah, having the help of a sponsor family, I can't even I cannot overestimate the help that that is. Like, their children are excelling. In fact, their little girl has just been promoted to an accelerated program. They wanna put her in a different school so she can learn another language. She's top of her class. Like, these are smart people, smart kids. They're doing great things, but without the help of someone to help them navigate the cultural issues and the language issues and all of the things that they face, there couldn't be this kind of success. It's just been a pleasure to watch them excel, and then difficult to watch them leave as they got independent, but good at the same time. We're so proud of them.
it was bittersweet. But I believe the biggest thing is, and it seems like governments throughout the world, they may bring him into the country. They may, I'm going to say, drop him in a location and they forget him. And these people can't be forgotten. We literally need not anything on us, but we need people like us who are willing to say, yes, let's try it. Let's open up that adventure and allow us to grow as we watch them grow. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
We've certainly gained more than what we've given.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I think this is one of the great powers of the sponsorship program that we're so excited about. Today, I heard it compared to um, the equivalent of the lunar landing as far as refugee resettlement, is because of everything that you just described. When people come into a country and they're received by wonderful families like yourselves, and they have support and they have a community that helps them to navigate all of these really complex cultural systems and government systems and educational systems that they're not familiar with, their success is just amplified. And like you said, these people left with nothing. They come with nothing, and they need they need families. They need a community to help to receive them. I'm so grateful for the sacrifice that you made to help receive this family. And one of my favorite quotes of all time is, if um, you lift me and I lift thee, and we all ascend together.
Love that.
So, as we lift these families, what has your experience been? How have you been changed by the experience?
One thing that just keeps popping up too is just that God loves his children in every nation of the world. And it has really, having the diversity brought into our own home has just opened our eyes to the fact that there are so many amazing people around the world. And we have never really experienced like anything like this before. And like, I don't, how do you even describe it, babe?
I have an absolute increased measure of gratitude. Um, we find ourselves living in our communities, living our lives, completely oblivious of other people, cultures, environments. And this has opened our eyes, especially myself, that I look at all people. In fact, I was at a dealership and I saw a gentleman that was of another country, and I find myself now open to say, "Where are you from?" And I take interest. It doesn't matter religion. "Oh, you're Muslim? Okay, great. I love Muslim people." Or it could be Hindu or anybody. I see people in a completely different light than what I did before. Because again, we become so fixated on ourselves and how do we progress in our lives. We forget that there's so many other cultures and people out there that we fell in love with them, and now I'm a changed person. I think we're changed people that we just love people now, and we take interest in them and their lives and where they're
Yeah.
from.
And seeing the joy, I just can't even accentuate enough the joy in the children's faces. Their little boy learning to ride a bike for the first time. They're experiencing anything. Like we took them on a vacation. They'd never had a vacation. They got their first car. They'd never had a car. I mean, it was just all these new things, and it really helped us to see in our own lives the joy in our own lives. Like we take for granted everything that we have. We had almost forgotten the richness of the things that we enjoy day to day, and it helped me remember that, like, in a really poignant way.
I'd say one more thing that as for us having young children, as parents, we're their teacher, and that brings a measure of joy in itself. And in this case, it starts to process over. It brings us back to where our roots are of teaching children. We just happen to have a family that we're sponsoring. So we're able to have realize that same joy that we're able to teach these people.
That we had as raising our own children.
Right. We get to see them flourish from the things that we're teaching them. And I'll tell you one thing that's absolutely amazing is because they come from cultures or environments that are so difficult for them to be able to have people that pay attention to them and care about them. They are so open and they are such good listeners and they want to learn. So anything that we teach them, they absorb. And as long as we're teaching them good principles and good things that'll help them in their lives, they eat it up. And it makes us happy because we see that. And we see that over time that they're able to naturally progress and to grow again to the point where they become independent and self-sufficient. And for us as parents, that's our ultimate goal for our children, right? We want to teach them principles and things that'll help them as they leave into the community or into the world that they can survive. That brings a great measure of joy.
So I know that this will probably get cut out, and that's fine, but I wanted to mention one other thing. Um, it helped me see things in our own culture that maybe are not the best. I remember taking a mother over to visit my mother who was in a care center. Now in Afghanistan, they live communally, so their families live together. So the woman joins her husband's family, and they are a big family in
3 and 4 generations.
yeah, in the home. And so for her to see that someone would possibly use a care center, that was very painful for her. She wept. And I thought I had to step back for a minute and think, they have some things that are really beneficial. Now, granted, the women likely aren't working or things like that, but um, some of our cultural things have been brought to light that maybe are not the best and that we could do better at.
But we see some things that we may not agree in their culture. But again, I believe we've learned tolerance and understand. We may not understand it completely, but we accept it the way it is. And we still have that great respect for the families.
Now, tell me, what would you tell a family that is considering sponsoring a refugee family? What advice would you like to give to them, and what encouragement would you offer?
Absolutely do it. Just
Yeah.
do it.
If you have an opportunity, just say yes. Jump in.
Yep, you'll get through it. You have so many resources that will just come your way, and you will grow and learn things that you didn't realize you needed to learn. And
And I
should
don't
we do another one?
sure. The amazing thing is, and some people hesitate because it's so much work for them. And we found out very quickly, as I keep going back to just say yes. Um, because once you say yes, your community will absolutely rally around you and they will do most of the resources. So in our end, again, it was just taking the leap of faith and saying yes, and everything else
Fell into place.
fell into place. It grew. It's amazing.
So, one final question for you this evening. How have you seen the hand of God throughout this process? And what has that meant to you?
Especially watching this family survive their ordeal. I have no doubt it was from faith and prayers on their behalf, us praying for them, and them also praying. Like, they have been preserved for something special. I mean, I guess it's yet to be seen, but there's no doubt in my mind that this is a family that was preserved for a reason, and they're gonna do and they're doing and will continue to do great things in their lives and the lives of their children. I'm so glad they're here.
And I see it as that leap of faith and in prayer that we make the decision, he will make everything come to play. He'll answer the questions. He'll fulfill the gaps. He'll take care of it. We just need to have that faith that he is there in our situation. He's been there.
Thank you so much to both of you for coming and sharing your story. We're so grateful to you for the love that you provided to this family, for the testimony that you've shared, and for the experience that you've been willing to have. We just offer hope and prayers that other families will reach out, that they will want to have these same experiences, and that through your story, we can help more families.
Right. We appreciate it. Thank you. Just say yes.